building after building, reduced to ash and dust. The Israeli military said on Monday it had carried out more than 300 airstrikes on Gaza over the past day, and that its ground forces had mounted raids. The army said its strikes were targeting military infrastructure, but residential buildings in northern Gaza's Jabalia refugee camp were hit. On Sunday, more aid trickled across the border from Egypt, and on Monday, a convoy of 14 trucks followed, but there are fears it's not enough.
Flanked by Hamas gunmen, Israeli hostages 85-year-old Yokefed Lifshitz and 79-year-old Nurit Cooper are handed over to the Red Cross. Their release follows Egyptian-Qatari mediation efforts. Israel says more than 200 hostages are still in captivity after the Hamas attack on October the 7th. The Israeli army is said to be pressuring Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to launch the ground incursion into Gaza, saying the operation in the south is well prepared. Israel's military and political leaders warn they'll deliver a crushing blow to destroy Hamas.
Tonight, the FBI is investigating after an off-duty pilot allegedly tried to crash a passenger plane. Alaska Airlines Flight 2059 left Everett, Washington, bound for San Francisco at 5:23 p.m. Sunday, packed full with 80 passengers, including multiple infants on laps. And 44-year-old Joseph Emerson, an off-duty pilot with Alaska Airlines who was hitching a ride, seated in a jump seat inside the cockpit. Soon after takeoff, he allegedly tried to cut the plane's engines by pulling the fire extinguisher handles on the engines called a T-handle. The crew able to overpower Emerson and get him out of that cockpit, handcuffing him to a seat in the rear of the cabin.
This attack against the police officers happened about 35 kilometers north of the seaside resort of Acapulco, quite a famous historically seaside resort. And the police were going on a road there, and they were ambushed by about 30 armed men. The police chief and his number two were both killed at the scene, along with another 5 officers. And 6 officers were then taken hostage and were about an hour later found on a road, who'd been tortured and handcuffed and killed.
"38 people were sentenced to death here on Monday for their role in the 2021 killing of Jamel Ben Smail. He'd been falsely accused of starting deadly forest fires in northeastern Kabylie region, when in fact he'd volunteered to fight them. Ben Smail had handed himself in after hearing he was suspected of arson at the height of the blazes which killed at least 90 people. But a mob surrounded the police van, beating him before dragging him out and setting him on fire.
The bow of a Chinese Coast Guard ship hits a wooden boat that was carrying supplies for Filipino troops on a landing ship that's used as a floating outpost. Less than an hour later, a Philippine Coast Guard vessel and a Chinese ship hit each other. Manila blames the collisions on dangerous maneuvers by the Chinese, but Beijing said the Philippine boat deliberately sailed across the path of its Coast Guard vessel in the first incident, and the Philippine Coast Guard ship reversed into another one of its vessels in the second.